friends, welcome back to my channel and welcome if you're new. My name is Max, my pronouns are they them, and on this channel we talk about all things books, and I also share about my experience as an autistic ADHDer. So today I was super excited to start filming because I rediscovered something. This is an e-reader that I have had since I was probably about 16, 17 maybe. They don't make these anymore. This is a Nook. It was an e-reader that Barnes & Noble brought out back in the day, and they used to sell them at Sainsbury's in the UK. They don't make these anymore. The whole Nook brand is non-existent now, but I'm kind of intrigued and excited to experiment with this because I'm such a physical book person. I love reading physical books, I love carrying books around, I love having a book in my bag, I love reading from physical pages, and so I've never been super into the whole e-reader thing. I've never bought myself a Kindle. I don't intend on buying myself a Kindle unless I experiment with this and end up absolutely loving the experience, which, to be honest, I doubt that's gonna happen. But I'm going away on Sunday for just under 2 weeks and I haven't decided yet what books I'm gonna bring with me. So maybe I won't bring any books with me and I'll just bring this. Controversial. That makes me quite nervous, to be honest. Maybe I'll just bring one, just in case this randomly breaks or something, even though it's been going for a good nearly 15 years. It does definitely have some glitches and some things going wrong with it. It's supposed to oscillate between various portraits of authors on the screensaver thing, and it's stuck on Kurt Vonnegut, which I think is quite funny because he's got quite a comical face. So in this video, I'm going to download some ebooks to put on this thing. I'm going to experiment with reading from it and I'm going to let you know my experience and what I think and how I find it. I'm actually really excited but a little bit nervous at the same time. Hello friends, so it's a few days later and I'm very excited because I've just been spending some time loading up the e-reader with a bunch of ebooks. So I thought I would share with you all of the things that I put on there, all of the things that I downloaded to put onto my Nook. I'm going to try and do this quickly and just snappy go through each one because otherwise it will end up being a book haul for this whole video, which is not why we're here, but I wanted to share them with you because it's fun. So here's the haul. We have Mortal Follies by Alexis Hall, which is a sapphic romantasy. Even Though I Knew the End by C.L. Polk, which is a sapphic urban fantasy. Harper Bliss's Seasons of Love, which is a sapphic romance based in Portugal. A Mirror Mended by Alex E. Harrow, which is a sapphic romantasy, and it's number 2 of the Fractured Fables series. We've got lots of sapphic books going on right now, but that's going to change because they're the ones at the top of my list. Then we have By Ash, Oak and Thorn by Melissa Harrison, and that is a children's book, I believe, about saving nature and animals. Then we have The Midnight Library by Matt Haig, which is a magical realism about a library that exists between life and death. Then A Lesson in Vengeance by Victoria Lee, which is a dark academia with hints of a sapphic romance, I believe. Then The House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune, which is, I believe, kind of like a wholesome magical, I'm not sure if it's magical realism or fantasy, but I do know that there's like a slow burn gay romance. By My Own Rules by Ma Anand Sheila. This is a non-fiction and it's written by Ma Anand Sheila, I believe, from her perspective of the story of working with Osho and that whole controversy. If you've seen the documentary about that on Netflix, comment down below because it is wild. The Dutch House by Anne Patchett. I'm excited to read some more Anne Patchett after I finished Tom Lake. The Dutch House. Goodreads calls it a dark fairy tale about 2 smart people who cannot overcome their past. Then we have The Mirror Visitor Quartet. I don't know whether it actually ended up being only 4 books. I feel like there might be a 5th one that came out, I'm not so sure. But this is a fantasy fiction series. Then we have The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. And this is a novel about a woman who makes a bargain to live forever but is cursed to be forgotten by everyone she meets. Intriguing concept. Then A Kind of Spark by Elle McNichol. This is a middle grade, I believe, about an autistic girl. The Caraval trilogy by Stephanie Garber. I've been wanting to read this for a while. It's, I believe, a romantasy about this like annual week-long magical competition. Oh, the Truly Devious books. I'm excited about these. I believe Truly Devious is like a whodunit where a teen gets involved with investigating a cold case, and there's 5 books in the series. The Inheritance Games trilogy. This is a YA thriller about an inherited mansion and all the crazy stuff that goes on there. And then lastly, we have a sapphic romance duology by Emily Banting, and those books are called Reality in Check and Broken Beyond Repair. Yeah, so I'm really excited with all of these books that I've gathered to get onto my e-reader. I'm optimistic that I'll like it. I'm going away tomorrow morning and I'm not bringing any books with me, only my e-reader, so this is going to be a proper experiment. I'm a bit nervous because what if I don't like it and I don't have any books with me? It's all good, it's going to be fine. So yeah, that's where we're at. I'll keep you updated. I'm excited. Hey friends, so wow, I'm a little bit sunburnt and it's a bit echoey in this room, so I hope it sounds okay. But I wanted to check in with you about this. So I've been reading using this for the last 2 days. Oh no, 3 days. Today will be the 3rd day. And it's been an interesting experience. Basically, I started out with Bitterthorn by Kat Dunn, and I was already reading that book with the physical copy, and then I transitioned to reading it on this, I think for the last 100 pages, maybe a little less than that, and it was fine. It didn't feel very different from reading the physical copy because I'd already read the majority of the book with the physical copy. Then next I chose to read A Winter's Promise by Christelle Dabos, which is quite a large series of books. I believe it's middle grade fantasy, and I just struggled so much to get into it. Usually I love stuff like that. Usually I'm really enthusiastic about like children's or middle grade or teen novels where there's magic involved, it's fantasy, all of that type of stuff. And I just didn't find myself caring super much about what was happening. I didn't really get into it. I didn't feel myself being enthusiastic about reading it. And who knows? Maybe that is to do with the fact that I was reading it on this and I wasn't reading the physical copy. I don't actually know, but I do have a feeling that it was the book. So I DNF'd and I chose a different book, and I think I'm going to be able to get into it a bit more. Something that I'm noticing is that I'm definitely less inclined to pick this up. I feel like with a physical book, it's easier for me to keep going, even if I'm not super duper into it yet, because I enjoy the physical sensation of holding a book, flipping pages. And I also enjoy, I realise, the physical representation of being able to put my bookmark in and look at the edges and see how far through the percentage of the book I am. And obviously with this I can't do that. I can't see a physical representation. I can only see page numbers at the bottom of the screen. So it's not giving me that dopamine satisfaction of being able to see how much I've read. So the next book I chose, I'm intentionally choosing because it sounds like it might end up being a 5-star read for me, and that is Mortal Follies by Alexis Hall. This is a book that I've wanted to read for a while and I've had my eye on it. Oh my gosh, this is a long Goodreads description. So it says, a young noblewoman must pair up with a rumoured witch to ward off a curse. It is the year 1814 and life for a young lady of good breeding has many difficulties. There are balls to attend, fashions to follow, marriages to consider, and of course the tiny complication of existing in a world swarming with fairy spirits, interfering deities, and actual straight-up sorcerers. Miss Maylis Mitchellmore finds her entry into high society hindered by an irritating curse. It begins innocuously enough with her dress slowly unmaking itself over the course of an evening at a high-profile ball, a scandal she narrowly manages to escape. However, as the curse progresses to a more fatal proportion, Miss Mitchellmore must seek out aid, even if it means mixing with undesirable company, and there are few less desirable than Lady Georgiana Landrake, a brooding, alluring young woman, sardonically nicknamed the Duke of Annandale, who may or may not have murdered her own father and brothers to inherit their fortune. If one is to believe the gossip, she might be some kind of malign enchantress. Then again, a malign enchantress might be exactly what Miss Mitchellmore needs. So I believe it ends up being a sapphic romance, but it's also obviously lots of fantasy elements, Regency era, which sounds great to me. And I'm super enthusiastic about it so far. I started it a little while ago and I'm only on page 27, but so far the writing is hilarious. So we shall see if I get on better with this one and if I get on better with the e-reader, because it might potentially be a book that I enjoy more than the last one. We shall see. I'll keep you updated. Hey friends, so another quick update. I am actually finding the e-reader a lot easier now than I was when I was trying to read The Mirror Visitor. So that definitely was a factor for me at the beginning of this video. I'm now on page, see, it says on here that it's page 125 of 113. And I know that that's not accurate because I know that Mortal Follies is not that long of a book. It's definitely not 813 pages. So I think that's just the way that it's showing up on here. It's definitely a disorienting thing to get used to not be holding the physical book and to not be being able to track how far through I am, because I really enjoy that aspect of a physical book. And so far, I still would say that I'd rather have the physical book in front of me, but I'm definitely finding it easier now that I'm reading Mortal Follies to carry on with the e-reader. The good thing about it, one of the major pros that I've found, is that it's kind of hands-free. Like when I was at the beach yesterday, I was able to prop it up against a rock and not have to hold it and just swipe whenever I was ready to turn the page. So it's very convenient in that way of like, you don't have to hold it open all the time. So we're on day 4 now, but at this point I would still say that my preference would be for the physical book. So it's a couple of days later. We are now on day 6, I think, of this challenge of only reading from my e-reader. So I'm now around the 150 page mark of Mortal Follies and I'm really enjoying the book. So I know it's not about that. I'm enjoying the book. I chose this book because I felt like it might make me want to read the e-reader more, because I feel like it might end up being a 5-star book for me. It's good so far and it's humorous and It's written in such a funny way. Like, the narrator of this story is coming from the point of view of this fairy creature who can morph into whatever form it wants to be in order to spy basically on these people in Regency England. I think it's Regency England. I'm not actually sure on the location, but it's very like Bridgerton vibes. But there's this fairy that's observing the people that the story is about and telling the reader the story from this fairy's perspective. It's very funny. And there's magic involved. There's a pesky magical curse involved. And basically the plot so far is these people trying to figure out who placed this magical curse on the main character. So it's great, it's a great story, it's a great plot so far. I really like how humorous the writing is. I really like the style of the writing. I like the characters, I'm enjoying their interactions, but I'm just finding it hard to pick it up. And because I'm enjoying the book so much, I know now that that's because of this. Also, I've noticed that whenever I'm on YouTube and I'm watching somebody else's vlogs or somebody else making any kind of booktube content, I'm seeing them holding a book and really missing it. So I do feel like I've given this a really good chance. And I think I've already said in this video, like, I really enjoy the fact that I can place this down on a table, not have to be holding it open, to be able to continue reading. Like, for example, if I want to read with my breakfast, I can just get onto the right page and then put it down on the table and use my hands to be able to eat my food. So that's super duper convenient. It's also been really, really easy for me to just be able to chuck it into my bag. But in terms of like the majority of the times of day that I read, I usually read during my morning routine and a lot during my evening routine. Like, when I get into bed, between the hour that I get into bed and I fall asleep, I'm usually reading. And I'm just not doing that as much at the moment. And I'm convinced it's because of the e-reader. And I'm really missing the sensation of holding a proper book. So here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna carry on reading Mortal Follies from my e-reader whenever I'm out and about, but I'm also gonna go to the bookstore. That's where we're at. I just know that physical books are my preference. But I'm really glad I've done this experiment and I'm excited to go to the bookstore and see what we can find. So let's go.
One eternity later.
Hello friends. So the reality is that I'm coming to you now a few days later. When I said I was going to go to the bookstore, I ended up not going to the bookstore, and it has been a busy week and I haven't had a chance to get to the bookstore. So what's happened is I haven't ended up reading, and I'm now in a massive reading slump. Haven't been reading at all, and I really miss it. And to be honest, I don't know in the next few days when I'm gonna get a chance to get to the bookstore. So we're just gonna have to play it by ear with that. But I wanted to update the vlog because I am definitely in a reading slump now. I just don't want to read from the e-reader. I just don't enjoy it as much. I have no motivation to actually do it. Like, usually I'm excited to read. I'm excited to read books, but I think that's the thing. I'm excited to read books, physical books. I love holding the books. I love being able to see, I think I've already said this in this vlog, I love being able to track how far along I am through the pages. Anyway, so that is now the situation. By day 10 of this experiment, I'm already in a reading slump. And I know full well that, like, my February reading wrap up just came out on YouTube, and I read 9 books in February. And I know for a fact that I'm gonna be reading so many less books this month because it's already the 13th and I think I've read 1 book. Oh my gosh. That's so crazy for me. Maybe it's 2. No, I actually think it's only 1. Wow. Yeah, so this is the effect of the e-reader for me. I'll keep you updated when I end up getting to the bookstore. Hey friends, why are you blurry and wonky actually? Let's adjust. There we go. Hey friends, so I got back from the bookstore a little bit ago. We're currently in the land of terrible overhead lighting, but it's dark outside now, so. And I'm about to have my dinner. I'm having, I don't even know how to describe this meal. I'm having bulgur wheat and like a tomatoey mince and black beans mixture. I've also got some parmesan on top and a bit of yogurt on the side because it goes really well, and some sauerkraut just because it's really good for your belly. So I'm gonna eat this. I took a big bite and it was way too hot. It's really good though. Okay, so I love the bookstore in this town. It's so cute and the people working there are so nice. Such lovely people. This is off topic, but because I'm autistic, sometimes I don't have the sensory cue that I'm hungry. Like my body's trying to tell me that I'm hungry, but I don't pick up on that cue of my body. So once I start eating, I'm like, oh my gosh, I was so hungry and I didn't realise. I feel like I say that sentence almost every day. And that's what I'm experiencing right now. So I'm glad I'm having my dinner. But I couldn't wait until after my dinner to show you what I purchased. So firstly, I'm really excited about this. I'm probably gonna say that for every book. But I got Anne Patchett's Commonwealth. I've been wanting to read more Anne Patchett since I read Tom Lake last month, because Tom Lake was my first ever read of an Anne Patchett novel, and I've been wanting to read more of her ever since. I thought her writing in Tom Lake was so beautiful and it was such a wonderful story. So I'm intrigued to see what her other novels would be like. So this says, it is 1964. Bert Cousins shows up at Franny Keating's christening party uninvited and notices a heart-stoppingly beautiful woman. When he kisses Beverly Keating, his host's wife, he sets in motion the joining of two families whose shared fate will be defined on a day 7 years later. Cryptic. In 1988, Franny Keating, now 24, is working as a cocktail waitress in Chicago when she meets the famous author Leon Posen one night at the bar and tells him about her family. She unwittingly relinquishes control over their story. It sounds so interesting and I'm so intrigued about how all of these people's stories are going to intertwine. More food. Oh my god, parmesan. I don't know if it's an autistic thing or just a health conscious thing, but I've noticed that my eating habits recently, or my meal habits, I end up doing this thing where I eat the healthiest stuff on the plate first and then like let myself enjoy the rest once the really healthy stuff is over. Okay, let's continue with the books. The next one I purchased, I'm also really excited about, surprise, surprise, and that is The Ocean at the End of the Lane by Neil Gaiman. In terms of Neil Gaiman books, I have only read Neverwhere and The Sleeper and the Spindle, which is a short story, but I've been wanting to read more of Neil Gaiman's works for a while, and what set that in motion was definitely the Good Omens TV show. I thought that was an absolute masterpiece. So I've been keeping my eyes peeled for more Neil Gaiman, and this is the only one that they had in the bookstore. And I'm intrigued because obviously now that I've been in a reading slump, it's quite short. So I feel like this would be very accessible for me right now, trying to get out of a reading slump. The blurb says, this is what he remembers as he sits by the ocean at the end of the lane. A dead man on the back seat of the car, and warm milk at the farmhouse. An ancient little girl and an old woman who saw the moon being made. A beautiful housekeeper with a monstrous smile, and dark forces woken that were best left undisturbed. They are memories hard to believe, waiting at the edges of things. The recollections of a man who thought he was lost, but is now, perhaps, remembering a time when he was saved. I mean, I love that you get an interesting idea of the vibe from that blurb, but it does kind of annoy me when you read a blurb and you don't actually know anything about plot or character. Is that controversial? I don't know, let me know what you think of that blurb. It's not really revealing very much to me, but yeah, I'm intrigued. More food. Ooh, I nearly spilt my yogurt. If you've never added like plain Greek style yogurt to a tomatoey or spicy type of dish, I 100% recommend you try it. So I bought 2 more books from the bookstore today. Next up, we have Philip Pullman's The Good Man Jesus and the Scoundrel Christ. This was actually in the teen section of the bookstore, but I don't know if that's accurate. I feel like it probably is, but oh, she gave me a cute bookmark. Very cute. I'm very intrigued about this book, and I feel like I'm gonna either love it or hate it, or love it or really not like it at all. I'm not sure which way it's gonna go. The inside cover says, in this ingenious and spellbinding retelling of the life of Jesus, Philip Pullman revisits the most influential story ever told. Charged with mystery, compassion, and enormous power, The Good Man Jesus and the Scoundrel Christ throws fresh light on who Jesus was and asks the reader questions that will continue to resonate long after the final page is turned. Above all, this book is about how stories become stories. I just think it's such an interesting concept, and it's like a really beautiful design. I love how the spine is white and either side is black. And I am a fan of Philip Pullman's writing. I feel like you're getting slowly tilted. I think in my January wrap-up I talked about reading The Book of Dust Volume 2 and Northern Lights in the same month, which was a bit confusing in terms of chronology of the Divine Materials universe. That was incorrect. The Dark Materials universe. But obviously this is a completely different story, and I'm very intrigued as to how he's going to approach it. I feel like it's going to be an easy-ish read. It's not very long. It's 245 pages, and the font is quite large, I would say. So I think it's going to be a fairly quick read. Oh, and I've just noticed it has a ribbon bookmark in the book. I love it when that happens. Awesome. Yeah, super intrigued. More food. I love beans. Are you even English if you don't love beans? That's a joke. These aren't Heinz tomato baked beans. These are black beans. Okay, lastly, I purchased Magpie Murders by Anthony Horowitz. Look how floppy it is. Oh my gosh. This has been on my reading list for a while, because last year I watched the, I think it was BBC adaptation of this book. They made it into a TV series and it was so enjoyable. And I remember seeing in the opening credits that it was based on a book, and I was like, oh, I bet that would be a fun read. It's a bit of a chunkier one. It is nearly 500 pages, and although it's floppy, and I really like that about books, it has this weird cover page where it's slightly shorter than the actual book, and I don't like that. And like, even though I know I already know the story because I've watched the TV show, I really don't care when it's something like this. And I know that it's quite an intricate plot, and I know that in terms of my memory, I'm not going to remember every single twist and turn, but I do remember how much I really enjoyed the show, so I think I'll have a really fun time with this. And I think this is going to be the one that I start with. So I think what I'd like to do now is give myself a couple of days of reading time of this to experience the contrast of reading with the e-reader versus with an actual physical book, and then come back to you and talk about how I feel about the difference between these two and my experience of this experiment.
2,000 years later.
Hey friends, it's now a couple of weeks later actually, or just over a week really, about a week and a half, and I'm back to finish off the end of this video. I actually ended up getting sick I'm home now, but for most of the period of time of this video I was staying with a friend, and I just ended up with what I believe was probably a chest infection, and it's still, if I sound a bit croaky or I keep having to cough all the time. But I'm back home now and I'm kind of getting slightly better each day. But I wanted to talk to you about my experience of reading the physical copy of Magpie Murders by Anthony Horowitz after getting into a bit of a book slump during this video because of trying to force myself to use the e-reader. So I'm here with my hot lemon water with honey to soothe my throat and to chat with you about my reading experience of the last week. So I really enjoyed Magpie Murders. It's a very enjoyable book. It has this really interesting concept of a murder mystery that I've never seen anyone else do and I've never heard of until watching the TV show of Magpie Murders last year, and that is that within the story of the book there is the character of an author who is a murder mystery author, and so it's like there is a book within a book, because the first half of Magpie Murders is the story that this author, fictional author, wrote. So you get to read this character's novel, and it's not a spoiler to say that the author dies at the beginning of the book, so you get to read what his book was that he was writing just before he died, and then you get to experience the characters around him trying to figure out how he died, what he died, the whole mystery. So experiencing that concept of a book within a book was really, really cool, and it definitely makes me want to read the next one, which I think is Moonflower Murders, I believe. So yeah, it was really good. I also think that what helped me even more to get out of the reading slump that the e-reader got me into was the fact that I already had kind of an idea of the Magpie Murders story because of watching the BBC adaptation last year. So it was almost like my brain didn't have to focus as hard, I didn't have to concentrate as much, which was also great while I was sick. So that's that. I think I gave it 4 stars. Yeah, 4 stars. And I believe they're actually adapting the second book, Moonflower Murders, into a series as well that I think is coming out this year, if I'm remembering correctly. So I'm very excited to watch that. And then I picked up Wild Things by Laura Kay. How beautiful is this cover? I'm obsessed with these colours. I'm obsessed with this design. I think it's such a beautiful choice to have the spine in orange and the pink and the green and the blue on the front. I just think it's so pretty. And I'm on page 216 of this, so I'm flying through this one. It's a very easy read, but I'll go into it a little bit more in my March wrap up. I don't want to say too much about it in this video because this video was about my e-reader experience. So let's conclude. The e-reader is not for me. I'm glad that I made this video and I'm glad that I challenged myself. I'm glad that I tried it. I'm glad that I gave it a good go. And I think I still will use it occasionally because of the convenience, really, and because of how small it is. Like, for example, if I want to go and do some work in a cafe, but I'm already carrying my laptop with me and I don't want to also be carrying a book, I might just stick the e-reader in there because it's smaller and lighter and then I'm not carrying as much. Or I can totally see it being useful when you're reading a really big book and you want to be able to also get it on the e-reader so that it's easier to carry around if you want to keep reading the same book. So yeah, interesting experience. It's definitely not my reading preference. I can see why people love it though, for the convenience of it, but I'm not going to be converting to being a purely e-reader booktuber anytime soon. And that concludes this video. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being on this journey of this experiment with me. Let me know how you experience reading with an e-reader in the comments. If you do, if you have any opinions, I would love to hear. Please subscribe if you haven't already and you enjoy my videos because it really helps me, and I will see you in the next one soon. Bye!